Alright, today we're going to learn about journal entry and ledger, and we're going to use the question in the workbook exercise 2, question 1. Right? So this is the question. Michael Liu set up ML Groceries. So the keyword is that it's a grocery distributor. Alright? And we have a few of the transactions. So the first step that you could do is to actually underline the two key elements, minimally 2 in each transaction, and we're going to see how it relates to our journal entry. Alright, so let's have a look at the very first transaction on 1st May. So Michael set up the business with $12,000 deposited into the business bank account. So the two keywords here would be set up the business and the business bank account. So when you have the business bank account, that would generally mean that you have cash at bank. Alright, and you have to understand that when you have money being brought into the business, so assets go up. So assets go up, as you can see, it will be a debit. All right, so as you can see, this AEDLIC that we have done in class previously, debit will be for assets that are increasing. So that's why we have our cash at bank, and we will have the 12,000 on the debit side. Now, the other one will be setting up the business. So that's where you have capital, all right? You're bringing in, or rather, Michael is bringing in money into the business. So that is his capital, all right? So like what I mentioned, there is more money going into cash at bank, which is an asset account. So we will debit it. And capital, as you can see from the table here, capital, when it increases, is a credit entry. So you will see that we will actually do a credit of the same amount, which is 12,000. All right. Now, how does it relate to the ledger account? So a journal account is a daily recording of a transaction, and a ledger is more of getting all the same elements like the cash at bank. So the main account is cash at bank. Anything related to cash at bank, we are going to put it in here. All right. So there are 5 columns. There is one extra one that says balance. Okay. So the first thing we need to understand is that we are looking at the cash at bank account. So it's like all the cash at bank transactions, we are going to plonk it in down here. So the first thing you need to understand is that when you look at your journal, cash at bank was a debit and it was 12,000, you follow exactly the same. So if cash at bank is a debit, just follow and write it as debit in the ledger. So it's a very brainless thing. Debit 12,000, debit 12,000, follow exactly the same. Now, the next thing you understand is that you need to know the reason why you had money coming in at your cash at bank, right? So the reason is due to capital. So that's where you write capital here. So that's the reason why cash at bank increases. And here we have the next, the previous slide, you will have seen the balance. I'll talk about it again later on. So on the 8th of May, you are going to issue a check of 5,000 for grocery trolleys. So the two keywords here will be check and grocery trolleys. Now you have to understand that this is a grocery distributor. All right. So here for check, the key element that we're looking at will be your cash at bank. All right. So that's where you have your check written. Now, since this is a grocery business, your grocery trolleys will be your equipment. All right. And here you can see when you buy grocery trolleys, equipment, right, is an asset. So that's why we debit it. All right. When asset increases, it's a debit entry. We are using money from the cash at bank to pay. So it means that it will decrease our cash at bank. So for assets, because cash at bank is an asset, right? So when it increases, it's a debit. But now because you're decreasing it, it's a credit entry. Now, so how does it relate to our ledger? Again, same thing. We are going to look for all the cash at bank and we are going to put them all together. So let's look at your cash at bank. And again, all right, we have the reason. But before that, let's have a look. Since it's a credit of 5,000, we are going to do a very brainless thing. Credit 5,000, follow credit 5,000, exactly the same. All right. And the reason why cash at bank decreases, because now we are paying out 5,000, is due to the purchase of equipment. So that's why we have equipment as the reason. Now this is something new. So earlier on, we had 12,000 when we first started with the capital. So earlier on, we had a balance of 12,000 because we put 12,000 into the bank account due to the fact that we had capital being brought in. So that was a debit balance, so we had a DR here. Now, if you look at your equipment, you are using cash at bank to pay for your equipment, and that's money going out. So that's where you have 12,000 minus 5,000, and I only have, or rather the business only has 7,000 left in the bank, and it's still a positive balance, so it's a debit balance. All right. Okay, next. On May 11th, the owner withdrew 500 from the business bank account for office use. Again, we are going to identify the two key components here. We have the business bank account and office use. So business bank account, quite brainless, is going to be cash at bank. Office use means you're putting money into your cash register in the business. So that's where it is your cash in hand. So since there is money coming in to your cash in hand, we debit it because cash in hand is an asset. So when asset increases, it's a debit. Now there's money going out of your cash at bank because we took money from our cash at bank to put it into the cash in hand. So that's where our cash at bank goes down, it decreases. So that's why it is a credit entry. All right. Now, how does it relate to our ledger again? Remember, we are looking for all the cash at bank. So this time we have the cash at bank, and we are going to do the same thing. If we see that this is a credit entry for your cash at bank, we will just copy it in the credit column, just as how it was for the journal. So it matches, huh? Credit for the journal, credit for the ledger. And again, we're going to write the reason why cash at bank decreases is because we used it for cash in hand. Now let's look at the balance now. So we had 7,000 left, but we are taking 500 out. So we are going to minus another 500. And now we are left with 6,500, but it is still positive balance. So it's still a DR balance. All right, the next transaction will be on the 13th of May, where we paid $78 cash for office supplies. So the two keywords will be cash and office supplies. So cash is just your cash in hand. Office supplies is just office supplies. So since there is money going out of your cash in hand, which is an asset, we will have to credit to decrease it. And office supply is an asset. So we will debit it because there is an increase, right? All right, then the next transaction will be on the 16th of May, where we issued a check of 3,500 for renting the shop space. So the two keywords here would be check and renting. So down here, check is quite straightforward. It will be your cash at bank. Now renting, because you are paying for it, it will be a rental expense. All right. So first things first, because you are using your check to pay for the rental, there is money going out again. So that's why you will do a credit because it will decrease your asset. Now, rental, as you can see from our AED-LIC, expenses will be a debit when there's an increase in expenses. So since we paid for rental, there's more rental expense, it will be a debit. All right. Now, how does it link to our ledger again? So again, we are going to look at the cash at bank. So we are only interested in cash at bank for now. And this cash at bank, we are going to follow. Since this was a credit entry, we are just going to brainlessly write under the credit column 3,500. Now, what is the reason why our money has lessened in our cash at bank? The reason is due to rental expense. So that's why we write the reason down here. Now let's look at the balance. Previously, we had 6,500 debit. We are paying out another 3,500. So 6,500 minus 3,500, we are left with 3,000. it is still a positive balance, so it's still a DR balance. Next transaction, 19th of May, bought groceries worth $4,030 by check. So what are the two keywords? Groceries and check. So again, the more obvious one will be your check, which is your cash at bank, and groceries, because this is a grocery distributor, it will be your inventory. All right. So same thing, because there's money going out, you use money to buy your groceries for your business. So that's why your asset decreases and it is a credit entry. You have more inventory now, and inventory is an asset. So that's why there is an increase and we will debit it. All right. So how does it link to our ledger? So again, the story is all about cash at bank, and we are going to just do the brainless thing again, which is, since 4,030 is on the credit side, we will still write on the credit side for the ledger. And we are going to look at the reason why we are losing money or why we are paying money. So that is because we bought inventory. So that is the reason. Okay. Now let's have a look at the balance. Now the story is a little bit unique now. We had 3,000 left, but we had to pay out $4,030. Why is possible is because the bank allows us to withdraw more than what we have because we have a prior arrangement. This is called a bank overdraft. So when you have a negative balance, right? 3,000 minus 4,030 will give us a negative 1,030. So we are going to write a credit CR to denote a negative balance. Conceptually, this means that now it is a bank overdraft, which is a current liability. We are owing the bank money, all right? So let's move on. Now, down here, there is another account that we were supposed to do a ledger for, which is the inventory. So now we are going to start another ledger account, 5 columns, date, particulars, debit, credit, and balance. But my story is now about the inventory. So now you can see inventory is my heading. That's the name of my ledger account. Now for inventory, it was a debit balance. So we are going to brainlessly again, right under the debit column, the same amount. Now, why do we have more inventory? What was the reason? The reason is because we paid cash, or rather check. That's why our inventory increases. All right, and it is going to be a debit balance for. All right, our final transaction is on the 24th of May. The business sold groceries at 1,700 and received a check. I'm just going to deal with this first, and we are not going to deal with the second sentence just yet. All right. So from the very first one, we will have the two key ideas: sold groceries and check. So very obviously, check is related to your cash at bank, and sold is your sales revenue. Now, since there is money coming in to your cash at bank, we are going to increase our asset. So that's why it's a debit entry. Sales revenue is an income. So that's why we have a credit entry for your sales revenue. All right, moving on, we have the second sentence here. The groceries cost $1,080, which we have not yet dealt with it. So the two keywords that we're looking at would be groceries and cost. So from the word cost, I think you can kind of guess the idea. And groceries is the concept of inventory, right? Your cost will be related to cost of sales. So down here, you have to understand that you are using, you're selling your inventory, right? So your inventory will actually be decreasing. That's why we credit it. And cost of sales is an expense, and there is more cost of sales now because we have increased sales, so we debit to increase it. All right. Now, how does it relate to the ledger? Remember, we need to find the same story, right? We are looking at the cash at bank story now. So the cash at bank story is here, and we are going to look for the entry with the cash at bank, which is a debit. Remember, 1,700. So again, 1,700 is a debit. We are brainlessly going to write it under the debit column. 1,700 as usual. Okay, and what was the reason? Because we had sales. So sales revenue will be the reason why we have increased our cash at bank. Now let's look at our balance now. So remember, we had a negative balance previously, 1,030, which we name it as a credit balance. Debit, now we have 1,700, which is a positive, right? So it is increased. So negative 1,030 plus positive 1,700 will give us positive 670. We have now moved back into the debit zone. We are now back into the positive, which is now a usual cash at bank account, no longer a bank overdraft. Hooray. Yay, yay, yay. Okay. Now, let's look at inventory. Remember, there were two stories that we're talking about, all right? So we had the cash at bank and we had the inventory, right? So let's look at the inventory story now. So inventory, we had a credit balance, or rather credit entry, right? So credit entry, brainlessly credit column, same amount, 1,080. Why did we have a decrease in inventory? Because of cost of sales. So that is the reason why our inventory decreased. So now all we have to do is, originally we had $4,030 a debit balance. We have removed $1,080 because we have done some sales and we have to take our inventory out for the sales. So that's why 4,030 minus 1,080, we have now 2,950, $2,950 debit. All right. So I hope that that has clarified a little bit about how transactions relate to journal and how journals relate to ledger.